While the whole AI market is completely fixated on who controls the compute, there is this one company quietly raking in nearly $500 million a quarter just controlling the physical cables that tie those superclusters together. Welcome to Earnings Unscripted, by the way. Today is June 1st, 2026, and we are looking at Credo's fourth quarter, ticker CRDO. And look, the growth is definitely there. Revenue hit $437 million, but the market reaction after hours was pretty brutal. What do you make of it, Miro?
It is a classic case of perfection already being priced in. The stock ran up over 50% in just the back half of the quarter alone. So when they print that $437 million, which is up, I think, roughly 7.4% sequentially, the market just yawned. Actually, no, let me rephrase. They panicked. A 15% drop in extended trading down to about $199 is not a yawn.
Right, which, quick reminder before we get too deep into the wreckage here, this podcast is just our personal opinions and definitely not financial advice. Please do not trade on our musings. But yeah, EPS was up to 88 cents. Margins looked totally fine. So why the massive 15% haircut?
Because the guidance is asking for a lot of trust. We will get to the forward look later, but you have to appreciate their current scale first to understand the expectations. They reported non-GAAP operating margins near 50%. Let that sink in for a second. You do not get software-like margins on hardware components unless you are incredibly supply constrained and highly vital, which they are.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up, actually, because to a normal person, a cable is just a cable, right? But the CEO was talking about how in these massive modern setups with 100,000 GPUs, if one cheap commodity laser optical cable misfires, it can corrupt the entire synchronization of the process. It literally freezes a multi-million-dollar computing bank instantly.
Exactly. It's the reliability tax. In environments where downtime costs millions, you stop caring about the cost of the interconnect. Credo builds these active electrical cables, AECs. Basically, it's highly advanced copper, and they are essentially a toll booth for AI scaling. If you want to build a cluster, you pay the toll.
And they definitely executed perfectly on that toll collection this quarter. Free cash flow was up almost 27% to around $177 million. It seems like the cash engine is just humming.
It is humming for now, but markets trade on tomorrow. And what caught my eye was not the revenue print, it was the sheer amount of inventory hoarding they are doing. They expanded inventory to over $250 million just to aggressively front-run foundry capacity. Hardware companies are out here acting like doomsday preppers simply to survive the supply chain crunch.
That's such a vivid picture. Just hoarding silicon wafers in an underground bunker somewhere.
I mean, it's not that far off. You don't build clusters without their small chips, and they are terrified of losing their spot in the fabrication line, so they pay up in advance.
Okay, well, there's definitely a lot more going on under the hood here, especially with a huge chunk of cash disappearing from the balance sheet very soon. All right, let's get into the details.
Yeah, so about that disappearing cash, Dan Fleming just casually dropped that the net cash amount you will see going out the door in Q1 is about $750 million.
Just pocket change. No big deal.
Right. I mean, they ended the quarter with $1.4 billion in cash. So writing a check for over half of it to close the Dust Photonics deal is, well, it is a serious statement.
It really is. And I guess they feel they had to do it because their active electrical cables, the copper stuff, is great for up to maybe 7 meters inside the rack. But if they want to link together entire data centers, they have to master optical.
Exactly. And Bill Brennan actually threw out a big prediction on the call. He said he thinks eventually the portfolio could hit a 50-50 split between optical and copper for sure.
Which is a huge pivot for a company built entirely on copper dominance.
It is a massive pivot, but the really interesting angle here is not just owning the tech. It's about bypassing the supply chain entirely. Because right now, the whole hardware industry is choking on physical laser shortages.
Okay, wait, so the bottleneck is not just the chips, it is the actual laser shooting the data?
Yes, and with the Dust Photonics architectures they bought, Credo's new designs actually reduce the number of physical lasers you need per cluster.
Oh, wow, that is incredibly clever. They are literally designing around a global shortage.
It's elegant engineering. If you cannot secure the parts, you just redesign redesigned the system to not need them, and that lets them ship gear faster than rivals who are stuck waiting in line for basic components.
Okay, that makes dropping $750 million look a lot more like a strategic necessity than just an aggressive buyout.
Oh, absolutely. But there is another piece to their survival strategy here that really stood out. And that is who they are actually going to sell all this new optical gear to.
Because right now, their customer base is just dangerously top-heavy, right?
Very top-heavy. Listen to this. Their top 4 end customers make up 87% of total revenue.
Geez, 87%? That is terrifying.
Yeah, the biggest one alone is 34%. The fourth one just barely crossed the 10% line to become a reporting whale. If any of those hyperscalers decide to try building their own connectivity chips in-house, Credo catches pneumonia immediately.
Right, because you just cannot rely entirely on 4 companies forever. So how are they fixing it?
By hunting what they're calling neoclouds. They formally identified them as a major strategic target market.
Neoclouds. I actually love that branding. Very cyberpunk.
It is good marketing. Basically, they mean Tier 2 operators. So sovereign AI builders and massive regional data centers operating outside the traditional Big 5 hyperscalers.
Oh, that makes total sense, because a sovereign AI project probably doesn't have the massive engineering army to custom build interconnects from scratch. They just want reliable, off-the-shelf equipment that won't crash their multi-million-dollar servers.
Exactly. And Credo thinks these neoclouds could eventually account for up to 20% of their revenues. It's basically an insurance policy against the big tech monopolies.
Which is totally necessary when your whole business depends on people scaling up infrastructure perfectly. So they're fixing their blind spot with a massive acquisition, and they're trying to fix their customer concentration by chasing sovereign AI. It feels like they're moving really fast to plug these long-term holes. So where does this actually leave them heading into next quarter?
Well, it leaves them asking investors for a lot of patience. The immediate guidance is actually pretty tepid. They are only looking at mid-single-digit sequential growth for the next couple of quarters.
Only single digits? Wait, after posting triple-digit year-over-year growth just now? That is a massive deceleration.
It is, but it is your classic hockey stick forecast. Fleming told the street to expect that slower pace early on, and then, his words, and inflection beginning in the second half. They're basically saying, just trust us until the new optical products fully ramp up late in the year.
The infamous back half ramp. I feel like whenever management tells the market to just hold its breath for 6 months, people get super nervous. Because if you miss even one spot in the foundry line, that entire inflection point just vanishes.
It vanishes completely, and their margins are already feeling the weight of the setup. GAAP margins are basically flatlining right now because they're handing out a ton of stock-based compensation to secure top engineering talent. Oh, and they dropped a very explicit macro disclaimer into the guidance too.
Right, the supply chain stuff.
Yeah. Fleming noted their entire outlook relies on the, quote, current tariff regime, which remains fluid.
Which remains fluid. That is such a polite corporate way of saying they're terrified a random trade war is going to blow up their margins.
Pretty much. With hardware, you cannot just push a software patch around a border tariff. But honestly, to give them credit, they are playing a very tough hand well. They are spending the cash, hoarding the inventory, and just front-running reality before the bottlenecks get worse.
It really does make you appreciate the sheer friction of the physical world. A cloud software company just pushes an update, and Credo's out here dropping close to $1 billion and dodging global trade wars just to plug a couple of supercomputers together.
The cables are never as simple as they look.
Clearly not. All right, I think that is a perfect place to leave our hardware existential crisis for the week. Thanks for unpacking all this with me, Miro, and thanks to everyone for listening. We'll catch you after the next print.
See you next time.
If you want these deep dives to just show up automatically for you, go ahead and hit follow on your podcast app. As a quick reminder, this show is generated with the help of AI, which is how we compress hours of dense SEC filings into the quick chat you just heard. We really love hearing your thoughts, so if you have feedback or a ticker you want us to dig into next, just email us at earningsunscripted@datamadness.ca or check the X link in the show notes.
Catch you on the next one.